I mean, you just talked. They were a playoff football team with really subpar quarterback play. The pressure is not high on either of those guys. The answer is Deshaun Watson. Cleveland has as good a roster as anybody in that conference. Maybe Houston and Kansas City have better. Cleveland has a defensive line that has a defensive player of the year. And a dude opposite him in Za'Darius that is unreal. They have good young linebackers. They have a secondary that can go with anybody in ball. They had the #1 defense in football last year. They have a coach that is a 2-time coach of the year. There hasn't been that many humans on the planet that have done that. They still have an offensive line that is top 5 in ball. And they went to the playoffs last year without him. They went to the playoffs last year starting 5 quarterbacks. Joe Flacco, who's in, I think, his 17th season, came off the couch and took them to the playoffs. At some point, we got to go pay the piper. At some point, we got to prove that we're worth all the conversation and what the organization went through to acquire me, and then to pay me the fully guaranteed contract that basically got him from one situation to the other. It's Deshaun Watson. 4 years ago, Deshaun Watson was on track to be the best player in football outside of maybe Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson. Right now, he's struggling to prove he's still a starter in this league. I don't think that's unfair to say. This is a football team that absolutely has the capability to make the AFC Championship game when it comes to their roster. We don't know who the quarterback is anymore. We don't know.
Great points, but where's...
Okay. I really love that, but I want to add some nuance here. Because I think the Cleveland Browns, and Deshaun Watson for that matter, are in a very interesting situation. And anytime we always talk about this question, because we love to ask this question in sports, who has the most pressure? Pressure. And it's pressure from who? The organization, the fans, the other players, the media, right? Where is this pressure coming from? Because I wholeheartedly agree with what Orlovsky is saying in terms of what the Browns can be capable of doing, especially if they have good to great quarterback play. And I've said this a lot. I made the video before this ever even happened a couple months ago, that it will all be on Deshaun Watson, that the team is there for the Cleveland Browns. That if they just get good quarterback play, if Deshaun Watson can actually be Deshaun Watson, he doesn't even have to be the top 3 quarterback. If he could just be a top 10 quarterback in the NFL, then the Browns can absolutely take off. Because I am also a firm believer in the roster that they have, Stefanski. I believe it can be that good. And so the limiting factor could only really be Deshaun Watson. But in terms of him having this pressure, I think it's actually really interesting. And I'm actually also going to ask this question directly to Cleveland Brown fans as well. Do you have that pressure on Watson? Are the fans, are the local media putting that pressure and those expectations on Watson to be that difference maker, to be that quarterback? Because I also echoed what Orlovsky said, where it's like Deshaun Watson's original trajectory was essentially to be Patrick Mahomes before Patrick Mahomes became Patrick Mahomes. And then, of course, it just went terribly wrong for various reasons, both on and off the field reasons, which we don't obviously have to get into. And now that should be behind him, relatively speaking. So there won't be any excuses as to why he failed. You can't blame the coach. You can't blame the roster. You can't blame the situation. It will be on Watson 100%. So there's no more excuses. And I think Watson will be able to do it. But this idea of under who's more pressure, here's the reality. Right or wrong, it's the reality. I'm not saying this is my opinion. I'm just trying to express how I think this all unfolds. Watson is not under pressure because people don't really care about him. They don't actually really want to see him succeed. He's not a hot topic. He's just not. I mean, I watch all these shows, talk about all these shows. There's such limited expectations and such limited, dare I say, positive press on the Cleveland Browns and Deshaun Watson. Of course, they're still a football team, and so of course they're going to talk about it. But Joe Flacco got more of a buzz than Deshaun Watson recently. And the only time that they ever really want to talk about Deshaun Watson is usually in the negative light of what he can't do, of his failures in the past. And of course, it's because of what he did off the field, right? Like that is why. It's like nobody wants to be able to step up in the media, especially if you're on ESPN or whatever, and say, Deshaun Watson is a great quarterback. He's an elite quarterback. He's a top quarterback. He's going to lead the Browns to the AFC Championship game. Like, no one's really confident in saying that. They don't want to be the guy that says that. Okay? Especially if there's a woman at the table. So you get tricky, weird analysis, I believe. I don't think Deshaun Watson magically just fell off a cliff. I don't believe he just magically forgot how to play football or the game has evolved past him. I understand he's dealt with some injury issues and stuff like that, and now there's been an extended period of time with just inconsistent levels of football, right? He hasn't been able to consistently play and get that momentum. But he's still young. He's not 35 years old. He's still young. I still believe, listen, can he rewind it back and truly become like a top 3 quarterback in the NFL? I honestly really don't know. I truly do not know. I try not to get lost in that too much. But do I believe that he can be a top quarterback in the NFL, just in general? One of those quarterbacks where we say, hey, you can't go wrong if you have Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, CJ Stroud, Jordan Love, right? When we're just naming the top quarterbacks in the NFL, don't get too lost in the names that I said. I'm just trying to whip out names that you can say Deshaun Watson. Like, Deshaun Watson will no longer have that question mark by him. Who is he? Is he good enough? Is he not? Right now, there is, like Orlovsky saying, the question is, like, can he even be a starting quarterback in the NFL as a whole? And I believe he can be. So the moment that he now can finally show that, then I think the Browns will be significantly better. But there is zero benefit of the doubt for Deshaun Watson in the media, where if a game doesn't go well, they will put it on Watson. Watson throws an interception, Watson fumbles, Watson makes a bad read, whatever it may be, it will be all on him. And they'll come out in droves. Whereas they started to make excuses or justify, say, a Baker Mayfield interception or a Baker Mayfield fumble, right? There's more of like a collective rooting. They wanted to see Baker Mayfield survive in Tampa. They want to see Sam Darnold get another chance with the Minnesota Vikings, right? There's that kind of excitement of like, come on, let's see what these quarterbacks can do when they're given a new opportunity. You don't have that collective rooting, I feel, for Deshaun Watson and the Cleveland Browns. So again, this pressure, I don't think it's just, you have to be on their radar for there to be pressure. So that's why, obviously, if you're a Cleveland Browns fan and you're part of that organization, of course, that's why I want to know, like, is that pressure? Is it all like, or have you reached that point with Watson where you're like, yes, we paid for you, we got you, you're supposed to be this amazing quarterback, either be it or not. We got it. We got to like figure this out already. Like, I'm just curious, have the Browns fans and organization as a whole and the media reach that point? Because national media, I just don't think there's enough attention. There's been more conversations about Justin Fields and Russell Wilson than the Cleveland Browns and Deshaun Watson, and it's not even close. It's not even close. Like, every single day, they're like, who will be the starting quarterback, Justin Fields or Russell Wilson? There's minimal talk. There's the talk all about the CJ Stroud explosion, Jordan Love explosion, what Trevor Lawrence, now that he signed his big contract, Tua Tagovailoa. Like, they talk about all those quarterbacks, and you hear such limited talks about Deshaun Watson. So if no one's talking about it and there's no like real true national eyes on you, to me, then that's why I'm asking, like, where is this pressure coming from? I believe that there's most likely pressure within the organization and probably within the fan base but I need some clarification from actual Cleveland Browns fans who actually have their finger on the pulse for that. But nationally, you're not seeing, Colin Cowherd and the Herd talking about it. You're not seeing First Things First talk about it. They don't really talk about it that much on First Take or on NFL Live on any of these shows. Like it's not really common topics. There's more questions about will Joe Burrow bounce back from his injury than Deshaun Watson. And think about that. The reason why I'm trying to emphasize this, because think about what Orlovsky's saying. And it's true. The fact that they were able to get to the playoffs, the fact that they were able to have the level of success that they did with a million quarterbacks and a quarterback coming off the couch, and him saying that if they have a legitimate quarterback, this team can get to the AFC Championship game, which is a big deal. It's a bold statement. It's saying, look how legit this roster is and this organization is with this coaching staff now. And if they're saying that they just need a quarterback, then the expectation should be through the roof. It should be the team that everyone's talking about, that a lot of people are talking about. But it's not. They talk about that with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Look what the Pittsburgh Steelers were able to do without their quarterback. Look what Mike Tomlin has been able to do. Never a losing season, blah, 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 blah. If Justin Fields can prove that he's a good quarterback and it was just the Chicago Bears, they can make it to the AFC Championship game. If Russell Wilson can rewind the clock, they could get to the AFC Championship. Like those are the conversations that are being had. Baltimore Ravens, King Henry, Lamar Jackson finally getting a good run game. Let's go. Like those are the conversations. I'm not seeing this conversation that frequently, which is just a fascinating thing to say, because if this team is truly as legit as Orlovsky's saying, then this would be the team that everybody would be talking about this offseason, saying, look what they were able to do with backup quarterbacks, old quarterbacks. Now they got Deshaun Watson. Magic is going to happen. And it's just not being said. So very interesting to me. But those are just my thoughts. I would absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think? Do you think that Deshaun Watson is actually under the most amount of pressure? Whether nationally, locally, within the fan bases, however you want to answer it. I'm genuinely curious. Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.